We are very excited to have everyone. Little background about Business Development Crew. We are one of the many sub-crews of TYPROS. If you have not checked those out, please do. I already see some of our other sub-crew leaders on here, so it's good to have them. The main goal of Business Development Crew is to create an innovative place for young professionals to connect with other young professionals, create a better business ecosystem, and ultimately make those connections that'll help you here in the business community. TYPROS is one of the best organizations. I got involved with it extremely early on when I moved back to Tulsa, and so I think you're in a great spot, whether this is your first meeting or if you're a returner. I think you're in a great spot. Really quickly, show of hands, is this anyone's first TYPROS meeting? All right, Katiana, welcome.
First crew meeting.
Crew meeting, okay.
Yeah.
Anyone else? I will be calling you out specifically. Okay, no one else. Well, welcome again. Really quickly, I'm gonna kick it off to Ciore. Ciore, thank you so much for joining us. I really want to let you have the floor, at least for the beginning. Please introduce yourself and say a little bit about why you're here and how you plug into the business community here. I know your resume speaks for itself, but I want to hear it from you. And then I have a couple of questions I'm going to ask, start the conversation, and then we'll open it up at the very end for some Q&A. Is that okay?
That works for me.
Perfect.
Okay, well, first off, hello everyone, I'm Ciore, and I went ahead and put the pronunciation of my name like in the box. If ever you guys do want to ask a question, it's totally there. A little bit about me. I am currently transitioning all over the place right now, and it's an exciting time in my life, but it is also extremely crazy and overwhelming. And so I'm transitioning right now. I'm looking for a home, and that was triggered because my parents told me that my car is too old, and I know that you're not supposed to buy a car before you buy a house. So now I'm triggering buying a house right now, and I am all over the place, and I'm starting this new business venture with one of my friends, and it's a new year, and there's all these things happening on top of me transitioning into a new job, and I am just all over the place. So if you want to know a little bit about Ciore, just know she's all over the place, she's holding it together, and I'm also really happy to be here. So as far as my interests are red wine and karaoke. And so I always make a point to let people know those things, because I think that's the most important thing to know about me, is how to connect with me after the meeting. So just letting y'all know, in case anyone's interested, I'm always down for free lunch as well. But more specifically, I am a boomerang to Tulsa. I did go to high school here. I went to Holland Hall, only though my junior and senior year. Before that, I actually grew up in Coffeyville, Kansas, small town of 8,000 folks. And then before that, I actually was born in St. Louis, and that's where all of my family is from. And so after I left Tulsa, I went to OU, and when I left Tulsa, I did not intend to come back. And I was actually in college for 6 years. I definitely did the scenic route. I don't regret it, but I also have no intention of going back. Just to throw that out there. And when I left OU, I was I think I've experienced all that Tulsa has to offer, all that Oklahoma has to offer. It is time to get out of here. And so during the time when I was in school, I ended up really kind of launching my career in oil and gas. I think by the time I graduated, I had accumulated over 2.5 years of oil and gas experience, working at the major corporations like Shell and Chevron. And I had lived in Alabama, Kentucky, New Orleans, Houston, did a stint abroad, and all of those things were really exciting. I even did a period at Toyota for 6 months. And so after I left, I thought that I was going to be ultra lucky, going to oil and gas, never work another Friday in my life, have happy hour every week. and the oil and gas industry plummeted. And no matter how many internships I had, I could not get a job. So I went to my mentors, said, what can I do to like kind of wait this out so I can come back to this career later? Because this is where the money is, this is where the fun is. And they told me either go into technology or go into consulting. Now, I have absolutely no interest in learning to code at all, but I always have loved people. And the number one thing that I enjoyed about engineering was actually operations, and how operations are really the backbone to every organization. In addition to, if you can manipulate operations, you can actually deliver a lot of results through people. And that's something that I was always very fascinated with. On the other hand of engineering, what I was always super afraid of was design work. I always felt like design came with so much like ethical pause, because if you make any mistakes in design, like that could be somebody's life, you know, and it shouldn't be that serious. But for me, like it was overwhelming. So definitely pivoted to the consulting route. I ended up going into management consulting, moved to Boston, worked at Accenture for 3 years. That was a really, really exciting time for me because I got to manage budgets over $20 million, you know, fresh out of college, like what is going on here? I got to travel around. I was traveling Monday through Thursday every week. After I worked on one big project where I was doing the project management, I moved to doing like culture transformations. And so that was exciting because Dow and DuPont merged together, and that was like the third global largest merger ever. And so that was exciting to work on that. And then my last time right before coming back home was actually working in the Innovation Hub, working with companies like Boston Red Sox, like the actual team, in addition to like Marriott and State Street, helping them figure out how to take technology and pivot into the new. And I feel like so much of the work that I do currently in town really all built on top of the background that I'm bringing in, really being able to work with these C-suite 500 companies, teaching them why it's important to put your information on the cloud, why we shouldn't be doing manual billing for a global organization. You know, it's like these things are seem so small, but it's actually not even the processing part that's the hardest part. The hardest part is getting people who don't enjoy technology or who don't feel like it's relevant to their lives to understand why it's necessary for their customers who engage with technology every single day. So, you know, I did my time there, and while I was having lots of fun at Accenture, at the same time, I was really bored. Like I was having a lot of fun and really bored at the same time. And I was bored from the perspective of when you're working in a really large organization that's as big as that, I want to say they have over 475,000 employees. Their process is so rigid, no matter how well you're performing, you really can't get in front of the pack. And that was really hard for me because it's like, okay, no one gets promoted until the 3rd year. After the 3rd year, then it's the 5th year. After the 5th year, then it's the 7th year. And then it's like, why are you working so hard not to receive like any of the benefits of your labor? Like to me, that was just not something I was familiar with, and it was not something I was interested in doing for a long time. So I actually worked with one of my coworkers there, and we came up with a new business. We decided to do this outside of work hours, and I actually started a cleaning service. And because I was in Boston, I tried to figure out how to innovate it. And what we ended up deciding was, okay, everyone around here has so many like cool benefits with their job, including like dog walking. We were just like, you know, we've never seen this before. What if we could make home cleaning a fringe benefit that companies would provide to their employees? So we just started going all over the startup scene, you know, trying to start this company, doing pitch competitions, everything. And so much so we were operating in 5 different states, and we got really excited about it. And we ended up leaving our jobs officially, just 100% quit. And we moved to Dallas. When we moved to Dallas, we were like, yes, we got everything that we need. We are getting ready to just like take the world by storm. But there was one thing we didn't consider, is that the Dallas market is completely different than the Boston market. But by this point, we've uprooted our lives. We spent the money. So there's no going back to Boston. We needed to figure out how to pivot. Me and my co-founder, we had a disagreement in how we moved the company forward. So I actually decided just to walk away from that. And so I came back home actually to my parents to regroup for Christmas in 2019. And I didn't know what I was gonna do. I kind of just thought, okay, I'll go to California and figure it out. I think I want to try this entrepreneurship thing. You know, I'm pretty good at it. And I'm also pretty good at helping companies. How do I kind of find this balance? But I happened to be back in Tulsa, and when I was back, it had been 10 years since I left, and I just started seeing new bars, and I started meeting new people, and then I actually ended up meeting my boss, Michael Bosch, if anybody knows him, and I was just kind of like, whoa, there's something happening in town that like I have no clue about. My parents have been here forever, but they kind of live in their bubble. They have no clue about it either, and like I was just exploring the city. And there was so much to explore. I ended up being here for all of January. Then I was here for all of February. And then the next thing you know, March comes and like COVID is here and like I'm not working, I'm not doing anything. And I'm like, what is next for me? And it just so happened that there was an opportunity at Atento. I actually had applied for the analyst position for investing, but the thing is, I don't know the first thing about investing. I just knew that I wanted the opportunity and I wanted to talk to folks and I wanted to be around like-minded individuals. And I ended up creating a space for myself through a whole story that I'm not going to go into, but I just got creative around how do I create space between me and my competition. So I was able to go to a strategy session that was just impromptu. And while I was there, I just listened for 8 hours. And at the end, they said, Ciore, do you think there's anything we could be doing differently? And with the background that I have, with them being a startup, I was like, yes. Where are your milestones? You know, what email platform are you guys using? Like, what are you guys doing to communicate throughout the day? Have you guys figured out like how your stakeholders are going to communicate with you? And I just start asking all these process questions. And then it's like, well, no one's really thought about those things. So I ended up creating an opportunity for myself at Atento, came on as a contractor for 90 days. We thought that that was going to be the case. And then the next thing you know, 10 days later, I kind of helped to stand up Tulsa Responds really quickly because it was COVID time. And I became full-time less than 2 weeks later. And then I ended up leading all of the strategy there. After I was leading strategy at Atento, that kind of turned into entrepreneurial development, which is something that's really close to my heart because I'm fascinated by entrepreneurship. But I also have the experience of project management, scaling, and doing that at a very large level, which kind of pivoted from how does entrepreneurial development really pair with Atento? Well, it's really sorry guys. It's really our way to give back to the city for economic development. So I started leading out economic development there, kind of working with setting up the culture there, setting up a lot of the best practices there. And then all of that led to one day Rose called me. She actually called me over Christmas break when I was in Mexico. And she said, hey, what are you up to? I said, I'm just exploring. And she's like, just exploring in life? And I'm like, I'm always exploring everything. So she started talking to me about some new business ideas that she had that sounded extremely fascinating to me. And I said, well, how can I be a part of it? And she's like, well, if you're open to it, I want you to lead it. I was like, well, great, that sounds good. And so, you know, it's a very cool transition with everyone being on the same page and excited about the move. And so I'm excited for the opportunity.
And so Ciore, I'm gonna jump in just for the audience. Can you explain the new role that you're going to? Like you were at Atento Capital and now?
Yes, so great, because I'm at the end of my story. So now she asked me about the opportunity. So now I'm transitioning to the TDC. So now I'm actually the new director of entrepreneurial development and education, which is really fitting and really exciting. And basically what that's going to look like is currently the TDC Creative Capital. TDC stands for Tulsa Economic Development Corporation. Right now they do a lot with funding and giving out loans, and microloans and micro grants to all of the businesses around here. They're processing a lot of business money and dispersing capital. But the cool thing about it is creative capital. And so it's really a resource in the community for folks across the business spectrum, from new entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, all the way to small business owners and even bigger companies. But up until now, there's really just been one branch focused on financing. And as you are trying to underwrite loans, you realize what people are needing. And so you start creating programs. Well, now we have a lot of programs, and then, it's such an exciting time in Tulsa that other companies want to be able to be a part of that. So we have a lot of companies that are actually moving to Tulsa to help develop entrepreneurs. And now it's like, where are they going to land? Where they're going to land at the TEDC. Well, with the TEDC actually historically being a financial institution, who's going to manage all the programs? Well, we needed to create a new opportunity for that. And so now that's going to be me. So everything outside of the funding that comes through TEDC will actually fall under entrepreneurial development and education. And that is what I'm going to be leading. So that is the start to the finish of how we got here.
No, that's fantastic. We appreciate that. And so let me ask this. I want to make sure that I put 2 and 2 together, just so everyone on the call knows, if they could reach out to you for specific questions, what your wheelhouse would be here. And you have a broad background. So at TEDC, let's say we have a business owner here, and I know some in the group right now are business owners, small business owners. So let's say they have a financing question. They would come to you in what scenario?
If you have a financing question, you would come to me in the scenario of being redirected for the best source of getting funding. I do not do the loans, the underwriting, or anything like that, but I am really the clog in the pipeline that helps distribute people and redirect them where they're supposed to go. Because a lot of times people apply for things that they're not eligible for, and then time is wasted. And then that's really frustrating, especially when you're in a crunch and needing capital. And so that's what I would be helpful for. But outside of financing, what you would come to me for, a few things. If you need help strategizing how to scale your business, or how to communicate better with your team, because communication is a part of scaling. Anything that has to do with trying to understand what your problems are within your company and how to really massage those out so that your team and your company can be productive. Those are things that I could support you on. Other things that you could come to me for would be if you know aspiring entrepreneurs who are looking for where to get started, whether it's a brick and mortar business, a technical business, even just like a lifestyle business, you can send those folks to me. We have different programs. Some of them are officially launched. Some of them are getting ready to launch. I can help redirect folks that way. And then thirdly, what I would say you would reach out to me for is just support really solving complex problems, understanding how they work within the current ecosystem that's in Tulsa. Tulsa has lots of different layers and levels, and sometimes it's really hard to know where your specific idea fits within the grand scheme of things. I tend to have a pretty good picture of it because I've worked in both the private sector and the public and nonprofit sector here in town.
Oh, that's awesome. And so I'm going to take a step back really quick, back to Atento Capital. And I definitely want to address a couple other questions and then open it up to the room. So back to Atento Capital, you also had a priority on inclusion and equality. And so I was interested to know how that comes into play and how you use that over at TEDC, because I know that a big push for Tulsa right now is about the equality, not just from a social standpoint, but also like a financial standpoint. So, yes. So how is that going to come into play?
So One thing that I will always say is that I am a huge advocate for people. I learned this a long time ago, kind of going back to my engineering journey and choosing management consulting. But in being a huge advocate for people, that really is synonymous with diversity and inclusion in a lot of ways, because you want to make sure that people are receiving fair and equitable treatment. What I have learned in my career is that it's not always the squeaky wheel that gets the oil. Sometimes it's the folks who know what they're doing that get the attention. But I've always found that operations and systems is a really great way of changing an organization. And so when I think about creating a culture that's inclusive, it's like, okay, what are our processes around hiring? Are we hiring everyone through referral? If we're hiring everyone through referral and everyone's in the same friend circle, then everyone that we refer in is going to be a part of this homogenous group. How do we get outside of that? Well, once we start getting outside of that, start putting limits on referrals, start going through a process, then you will find that you actually start getting a more inclusive candidate pool, just in general. When you think about like compensation is one of those things where if you just ask people what they're worth and you assign an arbitrary value, you start to include your own biases. Well, when you start to outsource some of these things through HR, or you start to figure out what are the local averages for certain numbers, or what criteria do you want for education or background or anything like that, you can start putting ranges on numbers, and then you have everyone who's kind of falling in the same range. And then you have performance, of course, where everyone's being promoted at the same rate. But then something that I find has been extremely valuable when creating equitable environments is making sure that there are always accountability systems in place, and that can look multiple ways. Performance achievement is only one accountability system. Another one is bringing in consultants for DEI to make sure that they're doing like quarterly trainings or so, and having outlets for people to speak to. Another thing for accountability would be anonymous hotlines, because you get to learn a lot about what people are going through. And then the fourth thing that I would say about accountability that really goes a long way is making sure that you actually have a layer of management that sees transparency into all of the decisions that are being made, so that they're able to challenge them. And as long as your management team is diverse, then you will actually receive very interesting challenges that make sure it keeps things equitable. And those are a lot of the processes that I was able to help support and implement at Atento.
That's awesome. No, I'm excited to see you move over to TEDC, and it'll be great. Rose moving into the leadership role over at the chamber as well. So that's awesome. The TYPROS obviously being an arm of the chamber, we are fantastically excited to see that. We have about 5 more minutes. I want to be true to our timeline here, so I'm going to open it up to the rest of the group for questions. Anyone, please feel free to unmute and ask Ciore a couple questions. She has a hard stop here at about 6:30, so let's we can try and be punctual. I have more questions myself, but I'm going to open it up.
Hey, Ciore, thanks so much for telling us a little bit about your story. I just wanted to hear a little bit of the specific areas that you point businesses to. So you mentioned a lot of times you have to point them in a direction. You kind of have a good feel because you worked in the private and public sector. What is kind of an example of a way that you point them? Just curious.
Yeah. So sometimes a company may need to go to a specific bank, and right now the TEDC, as well as other organizations, let's just talk about the TEDC, they're partnered with specific banks in town to be able to advocate on your behalf. So that's one thing that's separate from the TEDC. The TEDC underwrites specific loans. Sometimes that can be for Tulsa County residents. Sometimes that can be for folks who have a certain number of employees, and sometimes that could be for folks who have been operating for a certain amount of time. Well, then there are other entrepreneurs who come through who don't have any of that history or any of those taxes filed. And so they will need to go through more grant directions. And so we have programs in line that are like sky's the limit, where you could be eligible to receive $2,500. We have new programs coming in like Mortar, working with working with Atento. There are different accelerators that are looking to come to town. And then you also have 36. And so depending on what that particular business owner needs and how urgent their funding need is, there are just multiple opportunities that are currently in town that they can be pressed through.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Who else? Okay, I have another question if no one else wants to jump in. So if you're a newer young professional here, you said you were a boomerang, you came back to Tulsa, you were surprised by what all Tulsa had to offer right now. And we actually have an initiative called Bring It to Tulsa that the business development crew puts on. But if you were a young professional here, what would you be getting excited about that you've seen, let's say in the past 5 years, that Tulsa didn't have? And then where do you think we need to go? As in, what do you think we need to add in order to continue this momentum that we've seen?
Well, I'm being 100% serious here. There needs to be a karaoke bar that is open every day of the week. Like, that is the one thing that like gets me every time, that we don't have one. It's like certain days maybe, but not one place dedicated to it. But what I can say that Tulsa does have is it allows young professionals to wear multiple hats and excel really quickly in their career if they put in the work to do the networking. And I have seen it happen faster here than anywhere else, not just for myself, but for my peers as well. And I think one thing that Tulsa has also is you are literally two people away from any decision that needs to be made, and like that is really unheard of. As far as like actual physical spaces, yeah, we have the Gathering Place, we have some really cool bars downtown, but I also very much value like more vegan options, more juice bars becoming available. That's been really nice. The bike lanes and the trails, I mean, those are fantastic. So when people come in town and visit me, I'm always like, let's get on the bike and just like drive around. And so like, that's really cool and fascinating and something that I appreciate. You know, one thing that I would say Tulsa really is lacking is just really strong affinity spaces for minorities. And I do feel that if Tulsa is going to grow and be a sustainable city that really represents, you know, the US well, or just like who we want to be when we talk about One Tulsa, we're definitely going to have spaces where when we recruit different businesses and companies and talent to town, they're going to have to be able to feel comfortable outside of their workplace. And right now, that's just not something that Tulsa does well. And I don't feel bad about saying it, because if I wasn't so connected within my work environment, there would definitely be a lot to be desired here in Tulsa.
Yeah, no, I don't think you're the first that would admit that, and it's something I think that there's been a big push for, especially lately. COVID certainly didn't help, but no, I appreciate your honesty. I think we all do. I want to be punctual. We're right at 6:30 right now. Ciore, thank you so much for being able to join us. Can you do me a quick favor, and can you send in the message down low your contact info? I know you're also on LinkedIn, but just if you could shoot the group your email. I know that there would be interested parties that would want to reach out and connect with you. At the end of the day, that's one of Business Development Crew's main goals. And so hopefully everyone takes up the opportunity. If you liked what you heard or you have more questions, please, we can try and do something more like this if it makes sense, or just reach out individually. But thank you again, Ciore, for joining.
Yeah, thank you all. And the last thing that I would like to say is, one, I'm always like this, but I promise if you guys need help with business stuff, definitely reach out to me. And if you guys are just looking for who you can connect with, I get a lot of joy from connecting people and connecting resources. So please do leverage me if ever I could be helpful. But thank you guys.
Thank you so much. All right. Well, hopefully that was informative. I think it's always cool seeing seeing different speakers, but especially ones that have had such various backgrounds, and then coming into back to Tulsa. She's made a splash, and she's actually, we didn't even get to cover it. She's more humble than I thought, but she's on this year's 30 under 30, and so she's in that elite class. So very, very prestigious award. And so it was awesome getting to see her talk. But without further ado, I want to make sure everyone else is able to talk right now and start to get some energy levels going. So we are going to do something called shameless plugs. So for 30 seconds, I'm going to go around and I'm going to ask someone to introduce themselves, talk about what you do, and then more importantly, talk about something that you want to learn, get connected with, or maybe you just want to freely advertise if you have a business or what you do. Again, try and keep it brief. We're practicing elevator pitches here, but I think this is a good way for us to get the group a little more acclimated with each other. So I'm going to be a little biased here because I know a lot of people in this room. I want to hear some people I don't. Katiana, I'm going to pick on you since you are new and you raised your hand earlier. So introduce yourself to the group and then let us know what you do and then give us a shameless plug of something.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me on here today. This is my first meeting and it was wonderful. I really enjoyed hearing Ciore's story. It's actually kind of interesting. Ciore's mom and I work together. I work for Higher Call. We're a staffing company off 71st and Riverside. And what I get to do, I mean, just, very simply is I get to help people find great jobs with a variety of, great companies here in Tulsa. And I'll be honest, I guess, during COVID, I haven't had that many opportunities to do a whole lot of networking. So I'm really excited to, join your group and be a part of future meetings. So thank you again for having me.
Awesome. Well, welcome to your first meeting. You're no longer a newcomer. And then I'll say this for everyone, even those who are just returning, if you can, please post your contact information and at LinkedIn. We can all find each other. But if you haven't done that before, please do. My big push this year is to make sure people virtually can still feel connected in the business community here. And one of the big things I think we can do is reach out individually to other members within the groups. Please make an effort to do so. And especially reach out to both Bree or myself to have one-on-ones if you're curious about getting more plugged in. Okay, so I'm gonna move on. Is it Diogo? I want to pronounce this right. I'm gonna call you out.
You're right, it's Diogo. Yeah, it's the Portuguese or Brazilian version of Diego. Nice to meet everyone. It's my second TYPROS event. I just moved here to Tulsa from New York City as part of Tulsa Remote. And so, looking for, along the lines of what Katiana said, more opportunities to network. I have a background in business entrepreneurship. I work in sales, specifically at a research and data analytics company. We mostly sell data to very large corporations, global companies, and financial institutions. In my territory, specifically tech firms and Latin American, Canadian financial institutions.
No kidding. What's, I'm curious, what firm is it?
It's a small firm. It's called Caron. It's a group of my colleagues who founded the firm were former senior intelligence officials at the Treasury Department. And so when they left Treasury, they founded what initially was a consulting firm for intelligence matters on sanctions and foreign policy. And then that evolved from just a consulting business to a model that is much more scalable. We actually build a team of analysts that do investigations into financial crime networks, and so we've built a database, and we sell access to that database. I joined the firm as an analyst myself, investigating terrorist networks in Latin America, and then that evolved.
Wow, the terrorist networks in Latin America wasn't doing it for you. You had to move on. No, that's awesome. That's really cool. I want to hear more about that. So be on the lookout for a message for me to connect on that. That's really cool. Haley, you turned on your camera, which automatically means that my attention will be calling you next. Shameless plug. Let's hear it.
Great. Hi, I'm Haley Nichols. I also recently moved here during the summer, but I'm originally from here. Also moved from New York City, but I've been away for 10 years. So I work for a children's book author and artist, and I'm the studio manager, although the studio is now a little bit all over the place. And I'm also a graphic designer and do freelance work. So if anybody needs any help with design, let me know. And yeah, this is actually my first meeting too. I came in a tad late, but I'm really excited to see all these lovely faces and excited to learn more about TYPROS. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, awesome. We appreciate that. And it goes without saying, welcome to Tulsa. So you moved in summer of 20?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So you've been here for a little bit. You haven't really gotten to see a lot of Tulsa, but I promise it's nicer than New York City in the winters.
Yes.
I can say that. So, but yeah, post your contact info as well. Definitely want to get you plugged in. Okay, I think. Yeah, we have time for one more. I'm going to open it up. Shameless plug. Whoever unmutes and starts speaking first gets hit. So. Oh, man.
I'm Callie Roper. I am a visual artist, and I just completed a software engineering program. It's called Holberton. It's new to the area. And I am looking for opportunities right now to do project management or marketing. I'm kind of just open to anything since I'm a creative person. I'm looking to just mix it up. I'm also a comedian, and yeah, my videos might not be safe for work, but they are hilarious. So.
Well, it's funny. Ciore said, she says she wants a karaoke bar. I want a true improv club. And I think there might have been one at a point. See, everyone agrees with me. I saw everyone nod, so that means we need to bring it. Yeah, I'm passionate about that. So I did not know that. Okay, well, moving on. We're at 6:40 right now, and I want to be punctual. So we have a couple of things to actually get done. If you were here in the last meeting, you'll know that our initiatives for the year are threefold. One, our largest event, which is called All Access. That is just for those who are newer, that is a speed networking event, but instead of networking with people of our age and same level, you're actually networking with the executives And so you get speed dating, speed networking with a handful of different executives all across Tulsa, getting to pick their brains within small groups. And so it's one of the best ways. It's one of the first things I actually did with TYPROS, and it's fantastic. So I want to do brainstorming with that. And then I also want to talk about Bring It to Tulsa, which that is something that's initiative that Business Development Crew has done for a while, where we talk about businesses, stores, ideas that we want Tulsa to have that we've seen in other cities and we think it would benefit here. And then lastly, we have success series. We won't do any brainstorming on that today, but know that that is it's usually 3 times a year of a pretty cool speaker series, questionnaires, things like that, that we will do to further your education and knowledge of Tulsa. So without further ado, I'm going to start with Bring It to Tulsa because I think this is a fun one. So we have been doing this for a while, and I should know off the top of my head when this started. Andrea or David, do you want to chime in and tell me when we started doing Bring It to Tulsa? You know?
Yeah, Bring It to Tulsa dates back, I think, 7 or 8 years ago. Some of our substantial successes were Trader Joe's, and before that, Uber. So we usually get creative about ways to bring businesses like that here. One of the things we hear a lot of times is something like a oh goodness, what's the super furniture store?
IKEA.
Yeah. There are some businesses like that that usually won't look at us because of our population numbers, although the recent census may help us there. But there are always creative and grassroots levels where we can get the attention of companies like that and bring them to Tulsa. So we've also had some failures that actually turned into successes later, like trying to attract Google Fiber, which actually pushed 2 of our local companies, Cox and AT&T, to commit to aggressive plans for putting in fiber optic all across the area. So sometimes a loss can actually win in the end.
Yeah. So clearly an initiative that has impact. And so we want to talk about that and open it up. So first and foremost, this is a brainstorming session. We have a lot of different minds in this room right now. If you could open up your chat right now, I know it's already flooded, so I don't want to make it too different, but if you have something that you would like to bring to Tulsa specifically, we want to hear it right now. I'm going to give you some ideas just to get the juices flowing. You don't need to say it out loud, just type it in the chat. We've had home goods. David mentioned IKEA, In-N-Out, Alamo Draft House, which if you've never been, very fun. The closest one's in either Dallas or Kansas City has one. Nordstrom, we have a Nordstrom rack, so I don't know if it counts. Zipcar, the Container Store, HEB, and I wrote down karaoke bar because I like that idea. So write down something that you can try and get your hooks into, something that you'd like to see in Tulsa.
Doesn't matter if it's in Oklahoma City or not.
No, yeah. Okay. We'll take it. Bree, I know you and I have talked about this. Didn't you had a good idea on it was a retail store, wasn't it?
I'm not sure. I know Andrea's mentioned TaskRabbit. That's been a popular topic over the past couple of years. I can't think of what retail store we've talked about lately.
I can't remember either.
I think you guys mentioned Container Store last time.
Yeah, that's gonna bug me.
Yeah, Sweet Green would be awesome, but one that for me right now coming to Tulsa, I mean, thank God I'm healthy, but I immediately noticed the lack of is ZocDoc. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but
what is that?
So there's a platform for doctors. There are others, but it's a very good one to list their hours and for people to book appointments. But the good thing about it is that you can create a profile and input your insurance information, so know exactly, you know, what your prices are going to be. You know, obviously there are, you know, there's a lot of information there. So
Is that web-based or is that an app?
it's both.
Okay.
It's
ZOC, DOC.
What's that?
Is it ZocDoc, ZOC, DOC?
Yeah.
Is that something like very rudimentary explanation, but like a Yelp for doctors in that sense of like
Yeah,
finding
but
specialties, things like that?
Yes, but it's not just about the reviews. There are other review websites there, but the big advantage of this is that you can literally say, look, this is my insurance and I want to find, you know, exactly this kind of doctor. How much would it cost for me? And when can I get an appointment? Right. So it really makes your life much easier, because otherwise you're just Googling, you know, especially if you're new in town, like asking people around, and then you have to call the office and figure out, you know, what are your policies, what kind of insurance you take. And anyways, I don't have, you know, it's not, I'm just a consumer of their product. But
So one more question on this. Are we not able to download that app and use it here? Are we just not a participant city?
we are, but yeah, we're not. Tulsa is just not, they don't have doctors here. So they haven't made any effort to, you know, put doctors in their platform. So when you search for it, you find all the doctors that are doing, you know, virtual consultations and things like that, but not local Tulsan doctors. So that would be good for Tulsans and for the doctors as well, obviously.
On information, the way we got Trader Joe's here, or not Trader Joe's, but Uber here, was by flooding Uber with requests for pickups from Tulsa for a solid week. Just had a bunch of people flood them with requests, and they kept going, we can't pick people up in Tulsa. What is going on in Tulsa? And they finally just said, all right, we'll expand. So sometimes you can make things like that happen. Trader Joe's, by the way, they literally drove up and bought a bunch of stuff from Trader Joe's. They took an online order, went up to Kansas City and brought it back down and sold it at a pop-up shop. They had some legal questions actually, because they basically said, as long as you don't transport frozen foods, then they let us go through with it. But I'm just telling you, these are some ways we've gone about it, and you can be creative with that as far as how you approach some of these businesses.
Buc-ee's. What is Buc-ee's?
It's like cute. It's like a Quick Trip, but like 10 times bigger.
Steroids.
Yeah. It's like a Quick Trip on steroids. It's mainly based in like Texas, and I recently went to one in Georgia, which a lot of people didn't know there was a Georgia one. I was super excited to find it in Georgia.
Yeah. Last time I filled up there, I was at pump 47,633.
Yeah.
Buc-ee's is the cleanest place I've ever been. I don't know how they do it.
Yeah,
Really?
I have a feeling that QT probably has some sort of contingency with them coming here. So I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case.
The closest thing I've seen in Oklahoma is On Q in Oklahoma City, size-wise.
Yeah.
But it's literally, they're like small cities. So it's like a Walmart and a gas station and a truck stop and an RV store and a tourist shop all crammed into one with
That's
beef
crazy.
jerky.
I had never heard of this. Okay. Anything else? And what we're going to do is we're going to collect a lot of these, and then I'll ask right now. We're interested in getting a committee together, and ultimately across this year we'll be putting in place some of the names that we want to go after, a plan in place on how we're going to do it, and then putting rubber to the road and making calls and making trips and getting a plan in place. So if you are interested in doing something like this, please let us know. I'll ask that you can email either Bree or I directly, message us in the Slack channel. It's not a secret either, so if you are interested in doing it, please just type it in now so that we have record of it as well. So we're getting committee together, and we'll want to make the ask now. Sometime later this month or early in March, we'll be getting together our first crew session for this. So be on the lookout for that. And if you think of anything else throughout the rest of this, please type it in so you don't forget. Bree, do you want to cue them in on All Access?
Yeah, we'll go we only have a few minutes left, so we'll go over All Access really quick. So like Steven said, that it's basically any CEO, C-suite, any top exec that, you know, you've always admired or you've heard of, or just even just the industry specific or a business specifically that you engage with or you want to be engaged with. That is who we can reach out to, and those are the people we want to reach out to for this event. Usually we have it at the Summit Club, but due to COVID-19, we had to do it virtually last year. But it still worked out great. We still were able to have a Summit Club drink event, so people could still see it even though we couldn't have the event there. So you were still able to get, you know, the access and the opportunity even though we were virtual. So I would just say, if same like we did with Bring It to Tulsa, if there's any CEOs, businesses specifically you want to target, or just any kind of high priority individual you have in mind, put it in the chat and we'll add it to our list. And again, we also are trying to get that committee up and running. Usually what date do we have All Access planned for so far? In September?
I believe it's the beginning of October again.
Beginning of October, that's right. So we do, since those are one of our bigger asks, you know, it takes a little bit more coordinating, especially for, you know, if we are reaching those high individuals who have a lot going on. We would like to get planning sooner rather than later. So yeah, so just put any of your ideas in the chat. Like I said, definitely reach out to me and Steven if that's something you're super excited about and want to get involved in. And then also, if you didn't, I know a lot of people put their LinkedIn info in the chat earlier, but if you are new and haven't, and definitely want to keep up to date with what's going on or want to get into these specific channels that we're talking about, thank you, Andrea. Appreciate that. Please put in your email, or if not, I'm at least gonna send you a thank you for attending our meeting and see if you would like to still join anyway if you don't put your email in here. But definitely do so if you would definitely want to keep up with what's going on and want to get more involved with these initiatives as well.
Yeah, so I'll call out Diogo, Katiana, Nathaniel, LeConte, Dylan, Judy. I didn't get a chance to talk to you all, so hope to hear from you. Please put your info in if you're interested in coming to more of these events. Like Bree said, best way to communicate for us is through Slack, and you'll get those posts a lot easier there. And then, yeah, Bree, I would say we're going to be shooting out some time for our first All Access brainstorming session, where just like what we did with Bring It to Tulsa, which that's just a fun brainstorming exercise, we'll be doing the same thing, except it's a little tougher. Bree mentioned it, we got to think of executives. So maybe if you think of a company that you'd love to hear from, we'll find someone within that company that we might have an introduction to and make the ask. So look out for that coming up in the month. Oh, go ahead, Bree.
No, sorry, really quick, Diogo, you put your email on there, so we'll take it from there, and we'll, I'm not going to say tonight, but probably tomorrow, I will get you added on.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's one of the All Access. I'll be on that committee again. Zach and I both ran a lot with that last year, and that's one of the best events, I think, in Tulsa. And I'll be a little selfish there, but unselfishly, it's the first thing that I attended TYPROS wise, and it was fantastic. It is a lot of work, but you get to make those connections, whether you just attend Or if you're in the planning session as well, you're going to get to know your fellow TYPROS members extremely well, and you'll get to know the people that you're coordinating with, which are typically executives you'd want to meet. So highly recommend that. I won't pitch it any harder than that because I think it sells itself. So
it does. Really quick. So Andrea Pemberton put her information in the chat. If you didn't know, if you're new to TYPROS, Andrea Pemberton is our executive director. So she is anything and everything TYPROS. So me and Steven can also direct you to anything you would like, but literally we have to go to her probably not on a daily basis anymore, but at least on a weekly basis for something. She's the true heart and soul of this organization, and without her, we definitely could not be running today. So shout out to her, and just, since she put her info on there, I wanted to kind of explain herself. And then David Tillett, who's also on the call right now, he is our current chair for TYPROS. So he's had definitely a good running start for 2021. So feel free to reach out to him as well if you have any questions. And then, like Steven said, mentioned Zach. Zach helped with All Access last year and is definitely a good source if you're intimidated by any of us, big wig people. Not really. We're not really big wig people. But if you just kind of want to reach out, but, want to start somewhere in the middle, Zach is definitely more than willing to talk with you and give you his one-on-one experience as well as getting a little bit more involved. But we are 2-minute mark. So Steven, do you have anything else you would like to say?
I don't. I appreciate everyone being on. It's good to see some new faces, and it's definitely good to see the returners. I think I've spoken to almost all of you who have returned and set up one-on-ones. If you have not done so, please take that opportunity. I know everyone loves hearing Bree or I just talk a lot, but we'd like to hear from you specifically, figure out ways that we can get you plugged into Tulsa better. That's one of, like Ciore said, you're 2 people away from probably the person you need to know. So make the ask. It's an extremely nice city for those who are newer to Tulsa, but I think everyone knows that by now. So with that, we can make final remarks. We'll stay on a little longer and chit chat, see what people want, if they have any questions or any more brainstorming session. And what we'll do is we are going to go through the chat over here. We'll post the ideas that we had for Bring It to Tulsa. We'll take note of if you want to be on a specific committee and you just typed in your email, please specify what committee you want to be on. We'll follow up regardless, but it just makes our job a lot easier if you do that. So without further ado, meeting is adjourned.
Yay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Taylor, don't leave yet because I really want to ask you a question.
Thought you were out of it.
Sorry. No, I was just, so we're officially done. So Taylor, do you know the specific reason the Disney store is gone? I didn't know it left.
Yeah, so I'm actually